All right, welcome to today's intelligence briefing. We're going to take a hard look at the global security situation, breaking down the key military moves and strategic signals that are really shaping events around the world right now. Let's get right into it.
Here's how we're going to break this down. We'll kick things off with a high-level global overview. Then, we'll zoom in on three critical hotspots: the Middle East, the Indo-Pacific, and Europe. And finally, we'll pull all those threads together for a final threat assessment.
Okay, so what's the big picture look like today? Well, the entire security landscape is really defined by some serious military posturing. We're seeing major powers making very deliberate, very calculated moves, positioning their pieces on the board in ways that, frankly, demand our full attention.
Let's start in the Middle East. Right now, the region is seeing this massive influx of military reinforcements, primarily from the US and its allies. It's a huge buildup, and it's putting everyone on a knife's edge.
First off, the eyes in the sky are everywhere. This plane, an E-3G Sentry, you probably know it as an AWACS, is basically a flying command and control center. Its whole job is to paint a complete live picture of the entire airspace, tracking every friendly and every potential enemy asset. It lets commanders see the battlefield before the battle even begins.
And this is a huge signal. We're seeing strategic bombers, your B-1s and B-52s, flying out of the UK and just running these repeated training missions. But look at their flight paths. They're not just flying in circles over the ocean. They are practicing very specific strike routes that point directly toward Iran.
In fact, we've tracked at least 7 of these flights just in the last couple of weeks. Now, that kind of frequency tells you this is anything but routine. It's a very clear, very loud demonstration of high readiness. We're also hearing chatter that the deployments for these bomber crews might get extended, which suggests they're being kept in theater for a reason.
This buildup isn't just happening in the air either. Take a look at this graphic. It shows a steady, deliberate increase in coalition warships pouring into the region. If you look at that chart on the right, you can literally see the number of ships just climbing and climbing over the past month.
So the total count right now is 36 warships. And to be clear, this is not just some small patrol force. This is a massive concentration of naval firepower from the US, the UK, France, and other key allies. A force this size can control shipping lanes, launch major air campaigns, you name it.
And here's the crown jewel of that force. The USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group just crossed into the CENTCOM area of operations. It's making a beeline for the coast of Oman and is expected to be on station, fully ready for action, in less than 72 hours. Okay, now while all of that is unfolding, let's pivot to the other side of the world. In the Indo-Pacific, another major naval power is making some very significant moves, and what we're seeing in the South China Sea points to a much longer-term strategic game. We've got confirmation. China's Liaoning aircraft carrier is deployed with its full strike group. And when I say full, I mean the whole package. You've got advanced destroyers for air defense, frigates hunting for subs, amphibious ships for landing troops, and even a nuclear submarine lurking below. This is a complete, self-sustaining naval force ready to project power.
So, you might be wondering, is this just a random patrol? Not a chance. This slide here, from an unclassified briefing, lays out what it calls China's path to maritime hegemony. It details a very deliberate, long-term strategy with specific milestones, all aimed at one thing: making China the dominant naval power in the Pacific. These fleet movements we're seeing, this is that strategy coming to life.
This diagram here really breaks down what makes this fleet so capable. It calls it a system of systems. So what does that actually mean? It means the carrier group is designed to operate completely independently, thousands of miles from home. It's got its own air power, its own missile defenses, its own submarine hunters, all working together like a single, powerful organism.
And that kind of self-sufficiency lets you run some pretty complex and dangerous plays. This slide shows just one potential scenario that's being wargamed, using that carrier group to spearhead a surprise amphibious assault on Taiwan's eastern coast. As you can see, this would completely bypass the island's main defenses and effectively create an encirclement. And none of this is happening in a vacuum. This timeline shows the official, publicly stated modernization goals for China's military. You see those key dates? 2027, 2035, and 2049. Each one marks a major step towards their ultimate goal of creating a, quote, world-class military. The naval deployments we're seeing right now are a direct part of hitting those deadlines.
All right, let's hop over to Europe, because while all this is going on in the East, things are far from quiet there either. We're tracking key military movements, but also some really interesting political shifts that could test the very cohesion of the NATO alliance.
On the military side, the UK's flagship aircraft carrier, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, has just put to sea. This is a big deal. It puts one of NATO's most powerful naval assets into play, adding a significant amount of air power to the alliance's posture in Europe.
But at the same time, we're seeing some political cracks emerge. In France, President Macron's recent announcement that he's done with politics after 2027 creates this long-term question mark about the future direction of a key European power. But more immediately, there's serious friction building with Spain over the Iran situation. We're seeing reports that Spain is dragging its feet on committing support, which has led to serious talk of U.S. sanctions or maybe even a suspension from NATO. That would be a huge blow to alliance unity.
So what does this all mean when you step back and look at the whole board? Let's connect the dots and try to figure out what the actual global threat level is.
It really comes down to this core tension. On one side of the scale, you have these huge escalating factors: the massive military buildup aimed at Iran, China's aggressive naval exercises, and the political fractures inside NATO. All of these things are pushing us towards instability. The only real counterweight right now, a very, very fragile ceasefire with Iran.
So you have to ask yourself, why is there a ceasefire at all? Well, the assessment is that this isn't about a sudden breakthrough in diplomacy. It's about logistics. As this quote suggests, the thinking is that U.S. forces and their allies simply aren't fully in position yet. This pause is really just a window to get all the pieces on the board. And that brings us to the critical, bottom-line question. Officially, all this posturing is about deterrence and de-escalation. But once all these ships and all these planes and all these troops are in place, locked and loaded, does the objective change? Is this a build-up to prevent a war, or is it a build-up to win one? That's the question we'll all be watching very closely.